Welcome back. What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast. For Amusement Only, this is Nick Baldridge. Tonight I wanted to talk about 1969's Chicago Coin Moonshot. Last night I talked about Bally's Moonshot and how it was a carbon copy of 1962's Gottlieb Tropic Isle. Chicago Coin's Moonshot shares nothing other than the name from Bally's effort. Moonshot is a 4-player game and uses 2-inch flippers, as was standard at the time. It's got a 5 pop bumper arrangement with 2 passive bumpers up near the ball arch. This is very similar to several layouts used by Steve Kordek in his work for Williams. There are stand-ups, which are accessible off of the pops, or from a very well-placed shot from either flipper. But you can also access these stand-ups, which are on the left and right-hand side in the upper playfield, by passing through a chicane lane, which is a molded plastic area that directs the ball in a particular way. These chicane lanes are actually on the left and right side. Every time that you go up them, and will collect a bonus that you build individually for each side, the left and right hand side, by hitting a rollover button, which is down in the middle third of the playfield. Now, aside from keeping track of 2 different bonus values and allowing you to collect at will, this game also has ball save gates on both the left and right hand side, but the left and right hand ball save gates are different than what you might find in a Williams or a Gottlieb of the era. These are metal, almost regular flipper bats, but they have holes in the middle, which will flip down and hold if you hit stand-up targets, which are located on the left and right hand side, either at the top or the bottom, directly to the right or to the left of the outlane. Now that's pretty handy for you because it makes that a very safe shot. Those stand-up targets are worth 100 points apiece, or 300 if the light is lit. Now, when you go through the gate, there's a roll under switch, and when you hit that, it will close the gate. So let's talk again about the bonus values. There are actually 2. The one on the left hand is called the Moon Rocket Score, and the one on the right is called the Venus Rocket Score. The 2 dead bumpers at the top will advance either the Moon on the left or the Venus on the right. And down in the bottom third of the playfield, you have those rollover buttons I was mentioning, which will advance either the Moon or the Venus, depending on the left and right. And then in the chicane lanes themselves, you have the buttons, which when hit, will actually collect the bonus value. So, ideally, you have each racked up to 500 points, and just keep hitting those rollovers to collect. Now, on certain thresholds, you'll also light extra ball. And to light extra ball is one thing, but you have to collect it in this game. In order to collect it, there's a rollover button right in the center, in between the 2 Moon Rockets and Venus Rockets on the playfield, down in that bottom third. And it's labeled extra ball when lit. So when you hit that, it'll actually light extra ball and save you. Of course, the only problem with hitting this button is that it looks like it's fairly easy to drain directly after hitting the button, because there's a post a couple inches above that, which will just ricochet the ball right back down, so good nudging is required. Other than that, the shots look relatively safe on this game. It's not one that I've played before, but it certainly looks interesting, and looks like it'd be pretty fun. Your specials are in the outlanes, but of course you can make those safe to collect by opening the gates on the left and right hand side. So let's talk about artwork. Moonshot is a Christian Marche art package, and as such, during 1969, you get pointy people. I happen to like the Pointy People artwork of Christian Marche, and some of his themes are actually rather excellent. I happen to like this one quite a bit. So looking at the back glass, you've got a few female astronauts which are tethered to various landers, and they're heading out before the lander has actually landed towards the surface of the moon, I guess to go for a moonwalk. It's pretty neat looking because there is a spotlight coming from above and below the lander on the right-hand side, and in that spotlight you have moonshot written. The playfield artwork is also fairly interesting. You've got the rockets that I mentioned on the left and right-hand side feeding up to the top, where you have a huge representation of the moon, and then another planetoid over to the right. Perhaps that's meant to be Venus, I'm not really sure. But it is a lot smaller than the moon. But perspective's a thing, and perhaps you're close to the moon, and therefore Venus looks farther away. At any rate, the plastics themselves are yellow or gray, and portions of the moon or the planetoid that I mentioned are actually in the plastics in the center, and I find that very appealing, very attractive. You have representations of pointy astronauts on the left and right hand side. Very cool. Interesting action shots on each of the plastics. And the cabinet has more pointy people in space. Again, I happen to like the pointy people artwork. There's a lot of people who do not, and there's even more people who really do not like Christian Marche's artwork on pinball machines. For the most part, I love the pointy people. However, some of his later artwork on 70s Williams in particular, I'm much less fond of. But it's speculated that he had very little time in order to crank out these pieces of art. And as Roy Parker did for both Chicago Coin and Gottlieb, so did Christian Marche for Williams and Chicago Coin. So keeping that in mind, and how prolific he really was, makes me appreciate the pointy people and some of the more detailed artwork that he was able to accomplish in the 1960s even more. Well, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS-1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, also at Bingo Podcast, or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.